Hey, welcome back to the Nerdcast. It's been about a year
since
the last
yearly Nerdcast.
Or maybe longer than that. So if anybody's actually coming back, welcome back. Otherwise, good to join us here. I'm Devin. Justin's joining me.
I'm Justin.
This is kind of an impromptu thing because so we watch Game of Thrones together every season. And we talk about it extensively after the episode is aired. But we just finished watching episode 7. Which is called The Bells.
The Bells.
The infamous Bells. And honestly, the reaction from all quadrants of the planet kind of took me by surprise a little.
A little bit.
So I kind of wanted to get together and talk about it, kind of, analyze the show a little, but also analyze the fan reaction because some of it's just wild out there.
Yeah, I'm going to read a Facebook post.
Oh, man, you got a Facebook post.
I'm not going to name the person that did it, but I'm going to read... So get an idea where some of this, actually this was probably the most intense reaction that I saw on my feed.
So just to let you know, the Bells episode is the penultimate episode for season 8 for the final season, and basically everything that has been building up in the show, in some way, shape, or form, led to a payoff that I don't think a lot of people, for whatever reason, were anticipating or were ready for. It was, in my opinion, it was a good episode. I enjoyed watching it thoroughly. It was a visual spectacle, and I think it was narratively interesting as well. There were only a couple of character things that I didn't really sit well with me, but none of it never came across to me as like, of lesser quality or anything like that. Like, I didn't walk away from it feeling like I was robbed of an hour and a half of my life.
No.
So,
it was definitely entertaining.
It was definitely
an hour and a
entertaining.
half. Like, I was riveted. I watched it. I thought it was, I thought it was fine. Here's a quote. If I had 1,000 middle fingers, I'd shoot them all at D.B. Weiss and David Benioff right now. Way to ruin 9 years of what could have been a brilliant, epic, classic story. I hope you never get the opportunity to make television again, because what you've done to literally decades of intricate and well-planned story is a straight-up abomination. I am in disbelief at how horrendously they've ruined this. The only logical explanation I can think of is that they had some sort of pact with George R.R. Martin to botch the last season so incredibly that people are dying for the books when they come out. This is the worst ending of television or a movie series I have ever seen. Suck rocks, you shitty excuse for showrunners. I hope you're out of the industry with your tails between your legs.
Wow, suck rocks, huh?
Yeah, dude.
Okay, I have a feeling that person did not enjoy that episode very much. Well, the question is, what were they saying about like the episode before it or the episode before it?
They hated that as well. They hated the episode before it as well.
So I feel like their anger is unearned.
Yeah, I think it's a little. I think it's lazy.
Yeah, I think it's a little lazy.
It's a little lazy.
That's bad writing.
Their anger is a little lazy, a little sloppy.
That's one of the things that really gets me about all of this is like you have those key words that come out in people's angry rants like unearned and bad writing and whatnot. It really makes me wonder like what in these people's world constitutes something being earned or something being not lazy or well written, because it strikes me as like any kind of story that unfolds in a way that they don't want, suddenly that's bad.
Yeah.
Even if like, and I was trying to think of, is there anything that I liked or any kind of story or narrative that I thought should have gone a different way, but still recognized as being, really good or really well done? And I'm trying to think, and it's really hard for me to determine that because honestly, you have to have, I think it almost seems like you have to have a certain level of narcissism to like expect somebody else's art to massage all of the parts of your brain that you think you need to have massaged, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I don't ever really feel that way whenever I watch somebody else do something. Like, I try to take in whatever it is they're putting out. And if it's something that I don't agree with narratively, I don't think that it's sloppy or unearned or anything like that. I just didn't like that. Right?
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's like if I'm watching something that I feel was done almost cynically, you know what I mean? I can be like, okay, come on, man. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, but on something like that, you know, a lot of people worked really, really hard to put that on TV. You know what I mean? To put
Right.
that on people's screens. And they've asked literally nothing of the people that are watching it. You know what I mean? They've given, I mean, to talk about in that quote, they talk about, you know, 9 years of storytelling, you know, of which they think was brilliant, except for the last, you know, so the showrunners were killing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like to throw, and it's like you got, what is it at this point, like what, 80 hours of entertainment, you know what I mean, that kept you on the edge of your seat. And it's like, I'm just really mad at the last couple of hours, and so these guys are like the worst guys ever. I mean, I understand it's obviously an emotional reaction.
Well,
maybe,
it's a huge emotional reaction because and this is really a testament to like the brilliance of what the show was able to do in its earlier seasons. Like the fact that, because a lot of people have been bitching about this show since season 6.
Yeah, for sure.
Really. 5 was kind of but really the first 4 are lauded as being like the pinnacle of television, you know, and then 5 is like a transition, and then 6 and on everyone's been bitching about.
Yeah.
But the fact that people are still this tightly connected to these characters after they've been bitching about it for so long is a testament to how well written and how well directed and executed the show actually has been.
Yeah.
Even in these so-called more lackluster episodes.
And you think about this, it's like, you know, anytime people talk about like the best TV shows ever, everyone always brings up Breaking Bad, and Breaking Bad was great. I mean, I didn't watch the whole series because it was such a downer, but I did watch a lot of it, you know, and it was great. But you know, it's not as elaborate an undertaking as Game of Thrones. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like it's a bunch of guys doing drugs in the desert. You know what I mean? It you know, it looked great and it was fine, but it's like these people have convinced a good portion of the world that Westeros is borderline almost real.
And a part of that,
you know what I mean?
I feel like that's also a part of like its downfall. Like they definitely built up something that they could never live up to the expectations of.
Yep.
Like when you go back and you watch like those earlier seasons, it's unbelievable how many characters and how much depth the characters have, how many characters there are, how much depth they have, like the storytelling around all of them. And when I think about what we're watching now for like these past 7 episodes, it's really only been focused on like the same 7 or 8 characters. Like they all got together in Winterfell, and there are a couple in King's Landing, but like it's all just the same core nucleus of characters. But like earlier on, you had people that fucking nobody had thought about in years. You had Jojen Reed, Mirren Reed. You had I'm sorry, you had anyone in King's Landing, Yoren. The guy that
Barristan Selmy.
You had Barristan Selmy. You had Syrio Farrell. You had Jaqen. You had all these dudes. You had the pirate that wanted to cut Tyrion's dick off. I mean, you had all of these guys all over the place. So many characters, and not, at no point did any of those earlier seasons ever feel like it drug on or that it was any kind of. I never heard lazy writing to describe any of those ones. Right.
Well, I think too. You know, you're right. I think that no one. I think that there were the books, and I don't mean in the sense that the writers actually had the books to pull reference from. I think that was, that was helping, but on some level. But I think too that people could always reference the books. You know what I mean? If there was something that they didn't understand or whatever, and I don't mean they actually went to the books and looked them up, but you could get online and you could read all about. Just in depth, super in depth of some little thing that happened or something that you didn't totally understand. And it was like, wow. And when the book stopped, right around season 5, that wasn't available to. And I think it's very a common thing is like, well, these guys are just lost in the woods without the books. And I'm not saying that there's not some truth in that to some regard, but I think it's also that the audience is lost in the woods without the books.
Yeah.
The book readers are no longer sources of wisdom. You know what I mean? There's no wiki you can go look at to learn all about,
Right.
Like in Arthur Dane or whoever it is, you know what I mean? It's like, who was that guy? And it's like, oh my God, it's all right here. It's amazing, It's a resource, for the audience as well that hasn't been around. And and I think that the audience maybe feels a bit adrift as well,
Right. So, okay, the Bells, I believe it starts off with Daenerys mourning for what had just happened with Missandei. That was when in the episode prior. Cersei cuts Missandei's head off. Well, she orders her guy to cut Missandei's head off. So Dany's in a bad state, and Varys is doing Varys shit. So, and I actually want to read a couple of tweets because, spoiler alert, just in case you didn't get that there's going to be spoilers in this shit.
Oh, it's going to be crazy spoilers.
There's going to be some spoilers in this. Varys dies right off top. Like, he's the first one to go, like in the first few minutes of the show. And the reason why Varys goes is because he found out from Tyrion that Jon Snow is really Rhaegar's son, blah blah blah. He's the true heir to the throne, and Varys has been skeptical of Dany from the start. Like, he's been the one that's been going around going, I'm sure you guys vouch for her, but she's still a Targaryen, and the second I start seeing those crazy eyes, I'm going to be,
Well, he's the only one that actually worked for her dad, too.
Yeah, and he's the only one there that has experience with...
I've seen this before.
Yeah, so once he starts getting the sense that she's going that way, he decides that he's going to, send out letters to all of the other lords of all the other kingdoms and try to rally them behind Jon's claim to the throne. Well, Jon isn't game for this. He doesn't want to do this shit at all. So he straight up tells Varys right then and there, like, she's my queen. I'm not down for this. And
I saw an article on this part saying that, Varys was so smart, but in this episode, it seems that he's taking stupid pills as he's in his room just writing messages. And when I read that, I was like, at first I was like, yeah, but then I was like, we never really saw him writing messages. Where would he write those messages? You know what I'm saying? It seems like this is just his normal thing to do, but we actually saw it's like, boy, he's really taking a risk doing all this right here. It's like, yeah, but where would he theoretically do this? I'm sure that when he was in King's Landing, he wrote his little notes in his quarters. You know what I mean? Right. It's just seeing it now. It's like it's spoiled the mystery, and people are like, oh, what an idiot. He's just writing his notes in the middle of his room.
That's what they were complaining about?
One guy did. I mean, my point is, and there's a really great YouTube video by a guy named Patrick H. Willems.
Oh, yeah, I like that dude.
That guy's great. But he talks about plot holes.
Yeah.
And he references The Last Jedi and a bunch of stuff. It talks about a lot of different things that people complain about. And basically, he's like, movies are full of these kind of things. Movies and TV shows full of them. And he brings up The Dark Knight because, most people look at The Dark Knight as like, oh, it's just like the perfect, like comic book, kind of a movie like this. And he's like, there are so many plot holes in the very beginning, and he like illustrates all these, and starts ticking them off. He's like, the point is that they don't matter when you watch them,
right?
You know what I mean? Because the drama's working for you. You're in on it. People that pick apart plot holes, something else about the thing didn't work for them. You know
right?
What I mean?
And that's what happened with the episode where Dany's dragon gets shot out of the sky, right?
Yeah.
Like, people didn't like that Dany's dragon was killed, so they start picking apart. Oh, well, why was she flying in the middle of the water? And why didn't they know that there was going to be a ship ambush? Why was she flying so low? She should have been flying super high, and all these other things that they pick apart. And it's like, well, you just don't like that the plot took a turn that you weren't ready for.
Like, for every one of those, I can say, well, maybe it was a hazy day. And how many of you have ever ridden on the back of a dragon? And, maybe they were hiding behind those rocks. And at the angle they were coming, and they never saw the fleet.
Right.
And they had thought about it. Maybe you're on. You could. If
there's
you wanted to connect the dots, you could. The point is who gives a shit? It's what happened in the show. You know what I mean? Move along.
Well, I'm not gonna go so far as to say who gives a shit, because I think obviously for a good show needs to have the connective tissue, right? That holds the thing that moves the plot along together. Just so long as it's there and it makes sense and nothing is too like wacky, right?
Well, it's the thing that it's the making sense. You know what I mean? Is the issue. For some people, it doesn't make sense. They just can't imagine a scenario in which these things that they didn't want to have happen could happen. You know what I mean? And I watched someone on the internet one time was like, someone complained about a plot hole, and he's like, "That's not a plot hole. A plot hole would be in scene 4, so and so dies." And in scene 6, he's back alive with no explanation of how he's back alive and no talking about the fact that he died in scene 4.
But the thing is, even all that, but a lot of that stuff that they were bitching about was all shit that was established. The scorpions were established. Yeah. Like, a dragon being harpooned out of the sky was established. Like, all of that stuff had been established.
Sure, and it had a narrative purpose.
And there was a narrative purpose.
You can very easily see why they did that, what it achieved for the story and the suspense.
Right.
And, whether or not you agreed with it or not, that's beside the point. But from the writing standpoint, it's like, well, we got these two dragons. We have to level the playing field, or at least make it appear. It wasn't level at all.
No, it turns out,
make it at least appear that it's level, so people that are watching the show will be in suspense, because it's a fucking story.
It's a TV show, and you want to end it with people wanting to come back the next week and watch it again.
That's the whole point of a story, right? Is the story is not just a series of facts that all add up exactly.
Yeah, it's not Ken Burns' the Civil War.
And the dragon flew at an angle. He was at 700 feet. Had he been at 800 feet, he would have seen the fleet hiding among the rocks.
My dearest Daenerys.
Exactly. I mean, it's like...
The march to King's Landing is long and hard as this winter bears down on us.
But I think that's a lot of times the difference in a lot of fan fiction that you might see versus, because to some, fans and stuff, little details like this are really important to them.
Yeah.
Could so-and-so beat so-and-so? Who's better in the Force? And so-and-so,
that's
Yoda versus Mace Windu.
That's where mitochondria or whatever, midichlorian, whatever it is. That's where that comes from.
as Kylo Ren says, and Kylo Ren reacts, my grandfather's midichlorians. No, not grandfather. He's like, my great-grandfather's midichlorians. Sometimes it's better not to ask too many questions. But, which was hilarious. It was funnier when he said it. But, yeah, I mean, it's just like, there's certain things that you just go, okay, that's what happened. And I think that those things are easier to swallow if whatever thing that went along with that you didn't have a problem with. You know what I mean?
And it's weird that we went down this train of conversation based off of fucking Varys writing a note on a desk.
Yeah,
which is like that's the one thing you should suspect.
Yeah,
I
think he used the desk.
Yeah, the spy master who writes letters all the time and sends fucking ravens everywhere. He might sit down at desk. Where was he supposed to be?
Exactly. I think maybe they're thinking he would go to some caves and he would. And the guy who made this point, it was in an article. I mean, someone paid him to write this. It's kind of
boy.
Really. I mean, but again, though, it's not indicative of whether or not, it's like in his mind, in that moment, it broke immersion for him. It was just like, but I think it speaks to a mindset where it's almost like you're starting it not from let's watch some Game of Thrones and just see what happens. Let's have, you're like, this show's really limping to the exit. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like when Homer goes and sees the movie and the submarine is at the beginning. He's like, submarine looks so fake. Just the very beginning of the movie. Some guy's like, shh. I mean, and the thing is there were things in that episode last night that didn't make all that much sense and probably shouldn't have been.
Right,
there.
Of course.
I don't know why Jaime and Euron needed to fight.
Well, that was probably the most ridiculous part of that episode.
It's just like, why did this need to happen?
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay.
So, just like a couple of tweets that I saw about Varys, because he was torched to death because he was trying to usurp the throne. Or lead to an usurpation of the throne.
He was right. He
was absolutely right. And that was really the sad part about him and Tyrion's final messaging back and forth.
I thought that was a great scene.
That was a fantastic scene.
Yeah,
both actors were so amazing in
that
moment. And then honestly, my appreciation for this particular episode is for the first time since pretty much I think Tyrion's trial, you really saw Peter Dinklage's acting chops at full display between that scene and the scene where he was with Jaime.
Yeah.
I hadn't gotten and not to say that he's been bad or anything. His character has kind of been in a depressing lull pretty much since he fled King's Landing.
Yeah.
And that kind of only he had a couple scenes here and there where he talked to Dany around the table or whatnot, but he didn't really have anything that felt as impactful to me as when he was on trial until that
scene
episode
with him and Oberon in the when Oberon tells him he's going to fight for him.
Yeah.
That was a great scene, man.
That
was
one
of
the
best
scene.
scenes of the whole series.
The scene when Tyrion loses it and was like, I didn't kill your kid, but I wish I did, and the fact that he died gives me joy to watch you suffer, and all that kind of shit. That was a pure moment of brilliance.
Yeah.
All of that was great, and I hadn't really seen it from that character until last night's episode. So I was super stoked to see that.
I love that he told him it was him.
Yeah,
and I loved Varys' reaction.
Yeah, because Varys, they know the game.
Yeah, and Varys knew why he told Daenerys. He's Varys didn't blame him. He's like, hey, I get it. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I earned this.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then of course, the way that the dragon comes out of the darkness, fucking awesome.
Right.
Super ominous. And I'm going to say this once, and it's going to come up a bunch of times in this podcast, but film is a visual medium.
Right.
And the things you see on the screen, I know people that don't know about scripts and stuff a lot of times don't understand this, but a lot of times the things you see on the screen are in the script. They're written by the writers. They're imagined by the writers.
Right. The dragon emerges from the darkness
exactly.
slowly.
That the writers came up with that. And that was cool. And going back to the Battle of Winterfell, probably one of the most amazing things that have been on TV, maybe ever, when the Dothraki go across the field with their swords on fire, and you see all their lights blink out in pure darkness.
And even in that episode where people were bitching about how dark it was, like I'll accept the critique about the fidelity of the stream because all the black look pixelated. Yeah, that's true, and you're probably not going to get the full sense of that episode until it comes out on Blu-ray.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
But there was a reason why that episode was as dark as it was. The episode was called The Long Night.
Yeah.
It's about the long night. It's about the Night's King. It's about pure darkness descending on Winterfell.
Well, beyond that, it was subjective filmmaking. It was putting you in the place. Battles are confusing. It's hard to see what the fuck's going on. It's dark. You don't know what's happening. And that won more than any of them. And that it did a good job. I mean, I was confused. I couldn't see what was happening. It's like, exactly. It puts you in the mind. There was a reason it was so tense.
It's kind of like the Battle of the Bastards when Jon was bunched up in that mass of bodies and everything. Everybody was just crammed together and it was just chaos. And you just look at him in there and you're thinking, like, how the fuck is he ever going to get out of this alive? Like, what is this? I'm like, that's part of that is historical, like battles. Some battles were like that. But also a part of that is like just the way that it was filmed was to induce that anxiety.
Exactly.
Right? So like it was all about like
it was craftsmanship.
Right. And the same thing for that. So yeah, when you say that it's a visual medium, like that's definitely dictated by the writers.
Yeah.
And a lot of the shit that people love, even the people that bitch about it, a lot of the shit that people love is a result of the writing.
Exactly. It's the writing. And that's what's so funny. And that's, again, why sometimes when people say this is sloppy writing or this is just bad writing, it's like, guys, it's the dialogue and the plotting is only one aspect of the writing. In fact, somebody would argue it's not the most important aspect when you're writing a movie to some degree.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because if you can there's lots of movies where the plotting is fucking totally nuts. It's not even like a look at a David Lynch movie. You know what I mean?
Right.
The plotting, he's basically saying, I don't give a fuck if you understand how A connects to B. This isn't about you. You know what I mean? This is about me, and you're either with me or you're not. I don't give a fuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it's not even so much just about this is about me. This is about what I want to show you.
That's my point. It's about what he's trying to achieve.
Right.
And you're either with it or you're not. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like you go into an art gallery and you see some fucking painting. You're like, fucking lazy. That was just a dot in the, whatever. It's like, and people do that. But the thing is that it's like when you're writing a script, the descriptions, there's a rule, and people that deal with scripts and stuff are going to know this, but the rule is show me, don't tell me.
Yeah.
And so the idea is anything you can describe, anything that you can show and not tell, that's good storytelling. What you never want in a movie ever, in my opinion, but in general, I think, because it doesn't work, is someone explaining a bunch of stuff. The
exposition dump.
And an excellent example of that is in the Brian's Play episode of Family Guy. Brian's Play is full of exposition dumps comically to illustrate how fucking lame it is. You know what I mean? Where the guy comes home from work, he's like, I'm home from work. I just came. It was a long way. So, he explains all this random shit and it doesn't even... An excellent example of a great show me, don't tell me is in The Force Awakens when we see Rey for the first time and we see her go through her day.
Right.
And there's almost no dialogue, but in about, I don't know, maybe a minute, 2 minutes, it's probably about like 4 or 5 minutes worth of screen time, and some music plays, and almost everything you need to know about Rey. You know what I mean? She's been there a long time. You can see, and it's really brilliant. I mean, she goes into her AT-AT bunker, and on the side of the wall are all the places where she marked the days she's been there and stuff.
Right.
And all that shit, it's in the script. It's not something they came up with on the set. It's in the script. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and especially for something like Game of Thrones, it would be impossible to improv any of that sort of shit. Like as big as and like you got to recognize that for these 8 episodes, they're basically 8 films.
Yeah.
Like the last one was an hour and a half long. That's longer than some movies even.
Yeah.
And they had to shoot 8 of those things. and they're drastically different. Like, excuse me, like the episode for the bells that takes place in King's Landing, and the dragons flying around breathing fire on everything.
Yeah.
But then that's drastically different than like the Long Night, where it takes place in Winterfell and everything's super dark, and it's drastically different than any of the other episodes. So like,
and no other TV show that I can think of even comes close to the level of like epic immersion of these different settings and making them feel real. The only place, in my opinion, this show has faltered, you know what I mean, in all of its thing, is Dorne. Dorne felt super happy.
Well, that's season 5, I mean? Right?
Yeah,
that was 5, I think, or 5, or was it 5 or 6? One of those ones. That was one of the ones where everybody started to see the seams, right?
Yeah, sure.
And I think maybe that's really the problem. Like, when you have something that's super high quality for so long, like 4 seasons of super high quality, and then it starts to like show seams, then it's much more noticeable, right?
Yeah.
It's like you can have like a shitty Toyota Tercel with dents all over it. No one's going to really care. But if you see a fucking badass Ferrari and it has a dent in the door, people are going to be like, oh man, that car's fucked up.
Yeah,
you know, right?
Sure.
Like you got to take it to the body shop and get it all hammered out.
It's all about context.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Dorne was. I made a joke during the run of Dorne that Dorne was very Hercules, the epic adventures or whatever.
There was a lot of that. Yeah.
It just didn't feel like it comported with the rest of the show. It just, it felt a little like, what are we doing here? And this doesn't feel as penciled in as some of the other settings, as the North and But I mean, Jesus Christ, it's like shit's hard to do. There's so many different places,
and, you're gonna falter. Everyone falters. So the show is not perfect. It's gonna falter.
Yeah, I mean, I still watched. I still was entertained.
Oh yeah, yeah, of course, obviously. But anyway, so Varys dies. He gets torched, and it becomes incumbent upon Tyrion to make sure that he's absolutely right. That he's going to do whatever he can to try to stop a massacre from happening. So he finds out that Jaime was stopped. So Jaime, in a prior episode, Jaime pulled the dentist system on Brienne, banged her, and then was like, I'm splitting. I got to go to Cersei. And he bolts. And
this, to me, is so far, for me personally, is the biggest failure of this season.
Yeah.
I got to say, I'm sure that the writers could explain to me what they're going for, or explain to me in a way where I would be like, okay, I guess.
Right.
It's kind of like James Woods in that episode of The Simpsons, where he's like, he's an unhinged convenience store clerk, and now he's an Eskimo. How does that happen? Yep. Oh, all right. That makes sense. All right, I'm out of here. I'm on first plane. I'm sure that there's a reason for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it doesn't sit completely for me.
Yeah, the issue there, and I guess it's only an issue depending on how much you like Jaime's character. The issue there is that it seemed like his character, completed his arc almost. You're right. Like when he knights Brienne in that second episode, that felt to me like that justified his reason for still existing. Like he was a bad dude. Well, not even really he was a bad dude, but he made a lot of really shitty decisions that he had to live with, and he didn't know how to come to terms with it, so he hid behind the facade of being a bad dude. But it wasn't until he encountered Brienne that he realized, he's still a knight. He wants to be a knight. He wants to do the right. That's why he killed the king. He didn't kill the king because he was an asshole or he was a usurper or anything like that. He killed the king because he wanted to save thousands of lives.
Yeah.
So he's in his core, he's a good dude trying to do the right thing. And he's always had a hard time coming to terms with that until he met Brienne and he realized what it meant in her to be a knight, even though she couldn't technically become a knight. So his arc felt like it was completed when he knighted her. And the backslide to becoming what he was in the first episode, basically, there wasn't any, and it's really difficult because what were you gonna get in the last episode and a half that would have adequately, I guess, maybe not
squared the circle?
Yeah. Like, what were you gonna get? You're not gonna get anything.
Yeah.
Because it was too late to have something like that happen.
Yeah.
It almost would have been like if Theon, was about to go for the Night King and then turned around and tried to stab Bran
Yeah,
again.
exactly.
He's like, I finally got you.
Exactly.
All of this was a long trick for me to finally get you.
He turns to the Night King and's like, I'm the Lord of the Iron Islands. Let's join forces and we can take all of Westeros.
Exactly. It would have been like if that had
That's the way. That's a little bit the way it felt. Like
Yeah.
I thought maybe he was going to go down there and kill Cersei.
And that's what it seemed like it was building up to.
because
right?
it seemed like he had heard that a dragon died. Hell, she might win.
Right.
I can stop her. I can do it. And
Right.
I'm gonna do that. That'll be my final. But then he gets there and it's like nothing matters but us. You're
Well,
like,
okay.
Holy shit, Jamie! What the fuck?
So we'll get to Jaime in a bit.
Yeah.
Tyrion lets him free though, because he tells him, he's like, let Cersei know that if she rings the bells, they won't destroy her. Like you can get away with it. And you like Tyrion is the one that tells Jaime, go down to the crypt. There'll be a skiff waiting or whatever, and you could sell off and start a new life or whatever.
Quick question. And I saw this in an article, but I didn't get this from actually watching this show. So Cersei actually was in charge of whether the bells were rung or not.
No, because
Okay.
I don't think she got that message. Because Jaime was supposed to be the one to tell her that, right?
Yeah.
But he didn't get to her in time.
But people were screaming like,
Ring the bells, ring the bells. I think
did
people-
she relent and ring the bells, or did people just start freaking
I
the
think
fucking
people
bells?
just started freaking out and started ringing the bells because you saw the Lannister people throw their swords on the ground.
Yeah.
I think they saw what was up, they saw what was happening, and they just didn't want any part of it, no matter what the Queen said.
Sure.
That was what my take was.
Yeah.
Because Cersei, even at the end, it took Qyburn to tell her this shit's done. We got to get out of here.
We are beaten.
Right.
You
So
are beaten.
So yeah, I don't think the bell ringing had anything to do with Cersei, because Jaime didn't get to her in time.
Yeah.
But Tyrion was looking out for that. So what happens after Tyrion lets her go is he's his plan, I guess. And this is one thing that kind of they started it, and then I don't know where it went to. Like he asked Davos, like I guess he alludes to Davos, like he's gonna smuggle him there, right? But I don't know what happened there. Like, did Davos take him anywhere? Because he didn't get inside King's Landing. I
think maybe Davos put the boat there. I don't know. And honestly, that might have been more interesting than seeing him fight Euron. Maybe they should have, like, you know what I mean, like sat there for a second. You know what I mean? I don't know. Or maybe they should have maybe had him talk a little longer to Jaime. I'd rather have seen Jaime talk to Tyrion and explain why he was going. I mean, just give us a little bit more into why he made that.
Why Jaime
turn.
made that decision? Yeah,
turn. I mean, I don't need to have everything spelled out for him, but just a little bit more why he basically abandoned his arc to some degree to go do this. You know what I mean?
Only to have it pay off the way that it did, really.
Yeah,
and the turn wasn't the problem; it was what it culminated in.
Yeah,
because like I said, like. It made sense in a certain way, like because when he left Brienne, my first thought was like, oh, he's breaking her heart because that's the only way that he can make her have a clean break from him.
Yeah,
because he thinks he's gonna die. That's what I thought. I thought he thinks he's gonna die. There's no way that he could justify going off and dying after the thing that he built with Brienne. So the only way that he can. It's almost like, the classic, get out of here, dog. I don't like you anymore.
Yeah.
It's like that sort of thing. So that's how I took that, right? But if that's not there, if that ultimate conclusion of Jaime, vindicating his arc, I guess, if that's not there, then it just makes all of that so much more grimier, like so much more dirtier. And it just makes it less. And so like maybe if there was something between Jaime and Tyrion where it kind of goes into that a little bit more.
I could have spent a little bit more time, even if they didn't want to if they just wanted to skim over the surface of it. Give me some kind of in between the lines, you know what I mean? But a little bit more than they did, because I just didn't need to see Jaime fight Euron. Euron should have just been toasted on that ship. You know what I mean? And that fight. There were moments in this show that felt like fan service, and I almost and in both the moments, the characters during the fights actually go,
Yeah. Okay.
You know, and that's just my. It's
that's
like Geralt. All I see when that is Geralt.
Is Geralt just shrugging his shoulders?
Yeah, when any moment in the game where in The Witcher 3, this is a deep cut, where there's moments in The Witcher 3 where even Geralt is tired of shit. He's just like, don't make me do this, and that's the way it was. Just like, come on, guys, can we just? We don't need to do this, I kind of felt the same way during the Clegane Bowl because I felt that was extremely fan servicey.
Okay, so let's cut past that. What happened was the Iron Island fleet. They're in the waters. They're waiting. They're cranking those arrows up. They're getting ready, and then they hear a dragon flapping somewhere, but they can't see it. Mm. They look up, and suddenly Drogon comes down directly on top of them, starts breathing fire everywhere, destroys the fleet.
Its thing in the sun, so it was a hard time for them to see it.
They couldn't.
It was
really
cool. It was a good. Yeah,
it was a good strategy. It was the strategy that everybody thought she should have used in the episode prior. So Danny got your messages. She read your tweets. She incorporated in the next one.
Well, that's the thing. It's like she saw what happened. She saw how it works, and then she had some time to stew on it. And,
Right. So she obliterates the Iron Fleet.
So fast, dude.
Really quickly.
It was such a rout.
And then she goes up on the castle and uses the opposite strategy. So the castle was adorned with scorpions as well. But she goes right up to the castle really low, and she comes up on top of it, so they don't have time to, because it's right up on them. Yeah. So they don't have time to react by the time they realize the dragon's right on them. And then
once it's behind them.
Once it got behind them, it was just open season on all those dudes. So she destroyed all of those catapults. And then the dragon goes to the front gate, blows the hole wide open there. And
that was cool.
And that was awesome.
And cool.
That was rad to see.
Yeah.
And then all of the Northmen and the Dothraki and Unsullied, they just roll right in and just start slaughtering people left and right.
Yeah.
Like those Lannister soldiers. I think you called them clowns.
Yeah, they just look like they forgot how to fight for a second. It was just like, we thought the Golden Company was handling this.
The Golden Company, Harry Strickland, that guy. What a brutal ending for a guy with such a lame name.
Yeah, the Golden Company got their asses handed to them, dude.
Yeah, that wasn't like, and I felt like a lot of that was, it almost felt like the showrunners being like, I'm not saying this is a negative criticism.
Yeah.
It almost seemed like the showrunners being like, all right, fuck you guys, all right? You want to talk about Harry Strickland? Fuck you. You want to think these scorpions are going to do anything? Fuck you. Everything you've ever expected this show to come up to, fuck you on all of that.
Oh, they were snoking us hardcore.
Oh, yeah.
We were so effectively snoked by that. It's like they spent all this time, you know what I mean, kind of like building our expectations. This could be a really, Dany, and people were like, what happened to Dany's army in the episode before? It's like, that's all she's got left. It's like, looking back, I mean, I felt this at the time, but looking back, it's like, no, they're playing on your expectations.
Right.
They're basically saying, how is she going to fight? This is a real, what's going to happen? You know what I mean? It's like a magician, you know what I mean? You don't see what a magician's doing on the left hand because he's distracting you with the right hand, you know what I mean?
Right. And there's an ultimate play on that sort of thing so the dragon decimates, the army, the Northmen and all them, they've routed them, and the Lannisters are throwing down their swords. And then that's when the bells start ringing.
Yeah.
And Tyrion's on the outside. He sees the bell. He's been waiting, and they've been building up tension for the bells.
They did a great job with it too, because I'm thinking the bells are going to ring. It's going to ring. It's going to happen. Right. Everything's going to be okay. They're going to ring the bells. But then they held it out and I knew they're going to ring. They're going to ring. But I was like, they're just holding it out to make us really work
the drama of it.
Yeah, exactly. They kind of Night King knifed us with that.
Yeah.
Because then they ring, you're like, oh, great.
So the bells ring. Yeah. And you're like, okay, what is this going to mean? Because Dany's, she's not with Jon. She's not, communicating with her army. She's a lone wolf, as it were, on a dragon.
Yeah.
And Tyrion's not there, so he doesn't have he can't give her any advice or anything like that. He told her what was up earlier, like, if you hear the bells, call it off. So
she's like, yeah, I'm going to do that.
So yeah, she's looking at the Red Keep. And the bells are ringing, and you can just see the anger seething on her face, it just bubbles up. And eventually, she's just like, "Fuck it." So the Drogon flies off, and then just starts laying waste to all of King's Landing.
Yeah,
everyone.
He's going through a fucking dot matrix printer, dude. He's like, yeah, dude, line by line, fucking every square inch of that fucking city is being incinerated.
And this was the bulk of this battle. Was watching the dragon from the ground view completely destroy King's Landing.
Yeah.
So, and this is filmed beautifully, like just the shots of like the flame just completely evaporating people and
cool.
destroying buildings, and you see the dragon from the distance, and then it slowly gets bigger and bigger, and then it's right
up
on you.
Screaming in the distance.
It's screaming, yeah.
Although there was one part that I thought was ridiculous.
What was that?
The part where the guy runs up to Arya.
Oh
like,
yeah, have you seen my wife?
and then he just like sees her, and she's like, oh! It's like, why would Arya know who your fucking wife is? You don't know Arya. You know, how is he's like, oh yeah, I saw her. She's over there. She disemboweled. You know what I mean? It's like, that was so like, give me a break.
Yeah, you know, but that was rough.
Yeah, that should have been on the cutting room floor.
That was rough.
I laughed out loud when that shit happened, but you know.
Yeah, that was rough. But I mean, all the other stuff was really good. Like, if you want to call that bad writing, you know, I'm gonna give you a pass on that one. You could whatever.
Again,
it's
lame,
such a minuscule. But it's such a
ruin it for me.
It's such a minuscule part of the thing.
Well, that's the thing, though, is that, you know, if you're the kind of person that possibly at one point in time roll a 20-sided die and always imagine what it would look like for a dragon to lay waste to a medieval city with believably, you know what I mean? This was like a feast for the eyes, you know what I mean? You know, if you read Dragonlance and you always imagined what it was like, and when the Battle of Palanthas, when they just fucking this was it, you know what I mean? And I think that, you know, the show creators were those guys, you know what I mean? And so it was but if you're, you know, a person that that doesn't appeal to at all, it doesn't, you know, then maybe it was tedious or over the top. But, you know, I mean, the Clegane Bowl to me was just pure fan service, you know what I mean? It was like the Highlander, you know what I mean?
So what happened there is Arya and the Hound and we'll get back to Dany because there's a lot to talk about Dany.
Yeah.
But let's get all the other superfluous shit out of the way.
Yeah.
So the Hound and Arya will walk into the map room or whatever that room is called, and the Hound is like, you gotta go home. If you come up here with me, you're gonna die. And, you know, he's really affectionate with her. Like, and he always has been.
It was nice.
In his weird houndy way. And it actually gets to Arya. Like, it reaches her in some way. So she thanks him.
I liked how she thanked him. It reminded me of how Bran thanked Theon.
Right,
you know what I
right.
mean? It was that little bit of like, they didn't go into it. You know, she didn't say, thank you for all you did for me. Thank you for what, you know.
Thank you for being my surrogate
father.
father.
Yeah, whatever. She just said thank you.
Thank you.
And
then he just nodded and turned off.
It was like the most anyone had ever given him. You know what I mean? Almost no one had taken, you know what I mean? I guess Sansa came close, you know, in a couple episodes ago. But I don't think anyone's ever thanked him for anything in their entire lives. You know what I mean?
Right.
And in his entire life. Sorry, not their entire. But yeah, it was a nice moment, I thought.
Yeah, so he walks up, and this is like one of the funny things that, you know, one of the funny moments in the show. Like, Qyburn and Cersei and the Mountain are walking down the stairs, and Hound beats him at the bottom. And he's like, "Your Grace," and like the soldiers come down, he just lays waste to him.
Yeah, that was
super quickly.
Work.
And then they try to tell the Mountain. What were they telling him? They were telling him to take
defend the queen,
and the Mountain wanted no part of it. He was like, I'm gonna fucking kill this dude finally.
Yeah.
So Qyburn tries to stop him, and he just throws Qyburn against the wall, cracks his head open. Qyburn's dead. Qyburn goes out like a bitch.
Yeah.
So then Cersei, at this point, I just joked at the time. I was like, she should just walk by him and be like, do, 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 do. And that's exactly what she did. She was just like,
yeah,
I can't whistle, but yeah, she just kind of skipped right by him. Like, okay,
you just see her going down the stairs.
Yeah, you just see the back of her head bobbing down the stairs. So she just scampers away, and then you get this, you know, this honestly awesome looking fight. Like, the way that it was staged
cool.
was
right,
like right out of like
so epic.
What's that dude's name? Frank. Whatever, the guy that
Frank Franzetti?
Frank Franzetti, yeah. The way that it looked like a Frank Franzetti painting, you know, like the mountain was giant with the sky behind him.
He was all zombified.
The zombie,
fucking fighting and shit, and the fucking dragons laying waste to the city.
Fucking flames in the back
it
and
totally
everything.
is like a Frank Franzetti painting. It's like one you see, you don't know the story behind it. It's some shit he painted.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And it's just like two guys fighting on this fucking broken staircase with a dragon lighting up a city behind it, and shit falling down around him. You're like, I don't know how these guys got to this moment.
Yeah, exactly. And you know that painting is called like Battle on the Ruined Keep or something like that.
Totally.
So like, and that was cool. Like a lot of that I was okay for. I was never a person that needed the cliche.
No, not at all. But I enjoyed. Right. It was very visually cool. At one point, the sun was behind, Sandor or whatever, or the big brother. Sandor's the good Gregor. Yeah, the sun was behind him and shit. And it was like. This is, you knew they were doing this because people wanted to see it. Like,
right.
This was probably you're not going to get this in the books.
This was fan service.
If they ever get done, you know what I mean?
This was fan service for certain.
But,
But I enjoyed it, and it ended satisfyingly enough for me.
Yeah.
Like, he pushed him out of the bricks, and he falls into the flames. Okay, that's fine. We got that out of the way. So then, Cersei's, in the catacombs, and then she runs into Jaime. Or no, she's in that map room or whatever. She runs into Jaime, and that's when things start to fall apart. And Jaime's like, "Come with me. I know where we can go." Blah 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 blah. They go down to those tombs where the dragon skulls are, and they're supposed to get on that skiff and go away. But the destruction of the keep blocks off their escape, so they're just trapped there. They can't turn around because their injury was crumbled too. So now Jaime and Cersei are trapped in this catacombs, and this is like. Kind of like the same way I was saying that Tyrion's character wasn't really given a whole lot of meat to bite onto until like this episode.
Yeah.
Same for Cersei. Like she's kind of been flat.
Yeah, she's kind of been one note for a while.
For a while, but you get a moment in this scene where she actually starts to emote a little bit more. You see
they humanize her a little bit.
Yeah,
I've read articles today. It's like they shouldn't have done that. Blah blah. They shouldn't have humanized Cersei.
Wait, what? Why?
Oh, dude,
Why would you not want to humanize a character?
Because people, I think a lot of people, they didn't like Cersei. They wanted to see her punished, and
that's what they were seeing.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and this goes to another point that I want to make a little later. So we'll get there.
Yeah, they didn't want to see. They didn't want to see nuance. They wanted a witch trial. They wanted to see her hang,
right?
Man, you know what I mean? Well, emotionally, I think even the most erudite articles, a lot of times about something like this, are a lot of guided by people's emotions.
Right.
It's just like the person that wrote that that Facebook post. I mean, they're really cool, really smart. You know what I mean? But it's just there's an obvious emotional reaction. I don't know what it was that set that person off about the show. I mean, I'm sure they have a laundry list of things, but there's emotion there. You know what I mean? And I think that it's like, and we go back to our point we keep making. People are trying to articulate why they don't like something or why something's not working, and it's like. There are lots of things there are lots of, it comes down to a few things. Their inner child has a few major issues with what they're watching. You know what I mean? But as an adult, they glob onto a bunch of other stuff that they probably would have completely let pass. You know what I mean? If a series of other things, if the main thing hadn't bummed them out.
Right.
You know what I mean? Again,
and that happens in everything.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So. In these tombs, Jaime and Cersei embrace. Jaime is trying to comfort Cersei, saying "There's only us" and blah blah blah. And then the tombs come down, and that's how they die. That's how Jaime dies. That's how his character arc that he goes back on. That's how it ends. So for Cersei, it's one of those things where and I don't even know if I want to call it a problem, but one of the main sticking points with this series is that it's done such a fantastic job building up hateable villains that the payoff on disposing of them never lives up to people's desires, right? Like Joffrey was an asshole for 4 seasons, for 4 miserable seasons of that dude being a prick. And watching him get poisoned and die in like 5 minutes, it wasn't enough for a lot of people. Like, they were happy he was dead, but they wanted more. It's the same thing with Ramsay. Like, Ramsay was so insufferable that when he finally went, like, it just seemed like, okay, that's it. Like, I know that there was a huge war and all this other stuff that leads up to the moment, but we had to deal with this dude for so many seasons, and to have it all culminate in like a 5-minute
it goes to that human sense of bloodlust too.
Yeah,
but the thing is no punishment in real life is like that. Look at Hitler. You know what I mean?
And
we don't even know if he really died. I mean, there's some people that think he escaped Argentina because the body, they say, he died in his bunker, his body was burned. That body's not even his body, so let's assume that he died in his bunker and he burned. But it's not epic, horrible punishment death that he needed. You know what I mean?
Right,
that he had earned. You know what I mean? He needed something just epically horrible, not he shoots himself in a bunker and they light a fire and it burns and that's it. You know what I mean? And it's that way too. It's like anyone who say they've seen an execution, they say it's a fairly, it's like, geez.
Yeah, it's like it's a lackluster sort of affair.
Yeah, and I just think in general, and I think that's possibly, in a way, a metaphor for the entire series.
Well, I'll get to that in a second. So first, I want to I would be remiss if I didn't touch on what Jamie had to go through to get to those tombs, which was the fight with Euron. So at the beginning, of the battle, Euron's on a boat and the dragon destroys the boat, and somehow he fucking flies off of that and he disappears. So when Jamie gets to he knows that he was trying to get into the Red Keep with all the other civilians, but they closed the gates on him. But he knows a way to get in through like the caves or some sort. So he goes out that way, and as he's about to get into the cave entrance, like Euron just pops up out of the water like a boss fight, like, whoop, here I am. The red bar comes over his head.
It was pretty dumb.
And then like there was that battle, and the whole time I was watching it, I was like, is Euron this kind of a character for Jamie? Is this his penultimate rival? Where it's like this is what he has to overcome to get to the true final boss, and this is the rival that's been sticking in his craw for like, why am I watching these two fight?
I don't know. I mean, we have to go back and look at season 7. Maybe there was a moment of tension between them.
Yeah, there was in the throne room. I think when Euron was talking about fucking the queen or whatever, but I don't think it was even that. It didn't seem like there was a whole lot of acrimony there.
Yeah.
Like Jamie was annoyed.
Yeah, but it was just kind
of. But I mean, Jamie also seemed like this was a part of his arc. Like I thought he felt like he was over all of that shit.
Yeah, like they deserved each other.
Yeah.
Like, he wants to be with Cersei. Cersei's yeah, they deserve each other.
Right. He wanted to go find Brienne. That's why he went to Winterfell by himself.
Yeah, that was pretty much the nadir of this episode.
Yeah, it was really bad, and and the part but I could have gone with a lot of that. Just okay, we got to deal with this. But what really rubbed me the wrong way was how it ended, where it was like Euron looking right into the camera basically and being like, "I killed the Kingslayer."
Oh, he I'm the man who killed Jaime Lannister.
I'm the man who killed Jaime Lannister. Looking right at the camera or slightly off the camera or whatever.
Looking up in the sky.
Yeah, I was like, oh boy. Is that what this is about? Whatever. So
it was a weird end to a character that I felt was just never really.
And the thing is, so Euron stabbed Jamie like in the side, and then stabbed him again like in the leg or whatever.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really have a payoff, because it's not like Jamie falls and dies in Cersei's arms before the things fall. Like they're both standing. So my thing is, like, when they do release the Blu-rays, they should just cut that Euron fight out. Just cut it out.
They won't.
There's nothing substantial about it, so just go ahead and leave that on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, that just felt like like Batman or something. You know what I mean? It's just like there's always like in movies, we're just used to those kind of tropes in movies. You know what I mean? So and so survived this, so you can have one fight. Everyone's got that one
final fight with the face character.
Even in the good ones, you know what I mean? Whatever ones those are, that shit still happens.
It still happens.
It's everywhere. You know what I mean? And it's like Game of Thrones to some degree. Has held a higher standard in the past. And it felt a little bummer for that. It's like, really, we're doing this. We're doing this here. I guess we are.
Yeah,
we're doing this. You know what I mean? And so I'll definitely knock it in that regard. But again, didn't ruin it. I was like, that was kind of dumb. You know what I mean? Moving on. You know what I mean? I was just like, what do you want? They can't all be. They can't. The episode's an hour and a half long. It can't all be winners. You know
right.
What I mean? I think they just could have taken that narrative time and done something else with it.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the other things that they were tracking was Arya. So Arya was in the center of the Red Keep and had to get out of there. So she had the longest journey just to get out of the thing, and it was tracking her through the city. So she was and she was the first-hand witness to the atrocities that were being committed on the people of King's Landing by Daenerys. Like, she was right there with it. She was talking to a family. The family got torched. She was trying to escape.
Supposedly, I saw a clip. The girl had a white horse. in her hand. She had like a little white horse figurine that she was
Really?
running. Yeah.
Okay, well, probably.
Yeah.
I guess that makes a little more sense with how her thing ended, how the episode ended, really. But when you're with Arya, you get to see like, and this is probably the first time that the show really shows, what a war of conquest looks like for, the small folk, right?
Yeah.
Like you see, and especially for this particularly brutal type of conquest, like Dany is off on her own, and Jon Snow is freaked by it. Like he's doing everything he can just to keep his people under control because they are in full rape and pillage mode.
Yeah, Jon and Tyrion both know they fucked up.
Yeah, they know they fucked up, and Grey Worm is all about it. He's killing whoever he can.
Yeah,
the Dothraki are all about it. This is their life on a
this
norm,
is their thing, yeah.
And they haven't been able to do this in a while, so now they get to do this again. So all of Dany's people are completely on board with this thing, but the people in the North. Jon rather. I mean, the North people, they remember, so a lot of them are having some fun too.
Yeah,
Jon had to kill one of his own dudes.
Yeah, which he wasn't happy about.
Yeah.
I will say to Kit Harington, people back on his acting and shit, but
why? He's great.
I think that he is Jon Snow. You know
yeah,
what I
he
mean?
definitely
It's
is Jon Snow.
I mean, in the same way that Sean Bean was Ned Stark. You know what I mean? Like Jon is Jon. Kit Harington is Jon Snow.
Yeah, you just said Jon is Jon.
Yeah, the look on his fucking face. It's just that this. This is bad scene, man. This is not what I signed up for at all.
Right.
And he's just, it's just that weirdness. He has a general weirdness, and people complain about it. He's moping through it. So boring. Whatever. It's just okay. There are a lot of Game of Thrones edgelords. You know what I mean? Who like to just like to prove some kind of.
I think they want
some kind of character pissing contest. He's just too boring for them.
They want Jon Snow to be like Geralt.
I guess.
But Jon isn't Geralt. Jon is Jon.
No, yeah.
Jon is a mopey bastard, who, for much of his life felt a little bit out of place.
Jon and Geralt could exist in the same, Geralt would like Jon.
They would get along, I think.
Because I think Geralt would, and this is we've crossed the line into serious nerd territory here. We finally shed the normals, but I think that his just general horror, what was happening, and just the weariness. It's just kind of like, man, I just think of Jon is like Gil from fucking Clerks, dude. He's like, I'm not even supposed to be here today. He's fucking, I died. I already died. You know what I mean?
It's like, what did I fight the Night's King for this?
Yeah, he's like,
if I survived that horror for this?
He's like, I was killed by my own guys, brought back to life, had to fight those fucking guys, and here I am here.
Like slaughtering innocent people?
Give me a fucking break, really? You know what I mean? He's just like, I get that from, the look on his face, just this kind of general weariness.
And I think all of the actors did a really good job, reflecting on Arya looked like, for a character who arguably, maybe besides Bran, has seen the most fucked up shit.
Yeah.
For a character that is well acquainted with death to the point where she actively seeks it, she seemed visibly shaken by what was happening at King's Landing, more so than even what happened at Winterfell. She was more shaken by Dany's willingness to eviscerate innocent people with dragonfire than she was by anything that she faced with the Night's King, because they were all dead anyways.
Yeah.
So it was just like a magic button she had to press with the Valyrian steel dagger that all went away. But Daenerys is a different thing. This is like the horror that men commit onto other men.
Well, exactly, and I think that that's one of the arcing themes of the entire show, really.
Right?
You know what I mean? And obviously, people say that that D&D didn't, they just made all this shit up from whole cloth, but no.
Well,
George R. R. Martin told them this is what was going to happen.
But a part of the argument is that her turn wasn't earned or whatever. But
we'll get to that.
Here's what I want to say.
Yeah, well, I think that Dany is like a whole, because I think that's it. She's the Luke Skywalker, in this, and I think a lot of the general rage. Let's get to that in 1 second. But I want to say that, George R. This ending was something George had set up from the very beginning.
Right. All of this isn't new. This wasn't cut from. D&D
didn't make this up. This was how it was going to go from the very beginning.
Right.
She was going to do this, and there are obvious, the way it was shot and the way it looked, it was obvious there were parallels between modern warfare and World War II.
But this is what I want to
bombed out city.
But this is what I want to get at real quick.
Yeah.
So, and to talk about whether it was earned or not or whatever, blah blah blah. The thing is, for 8 seasons, this is literally what people have been wanting. Like, people have been saying, wait till Danny gets to Westeros with their dragons. When's Danny going to get to Westeros? Even South Park had an episode that made fun of, like, oh, the dragons are coming. Don't worry. The dragons are coming.
Yeah,
like, it was all about Danny getting to Westeros with dragons. And then she gets to Westeros with dragons. It's like, well, now she's got to fight the Night King. Like, hurry up and get this done so you can go down and get down there and do your thing with her dragons. Like, when she's going to come with her dragons. It's always been about Danny with her dragons. Well, this episode did what everybody has been wanting since literally the first season.
Yeah.
They got Danny. They got her dragons. The thing is, and this is when you go, it goes back to the film as a visual medium, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You can use the visual medium to tell the same narrative in several different ways, just depending on how it's shot. So they could have done this scene. They could have done this whole battle where they've done battles like this before in Game of Thrones for budgetary reasons, where, you know, it's like, all right, we're about to siege King's Landing, and then it cuts to like Winterfell, and it's Sansa hanging out with Brienne or whatever, and then a maester comes in with a letter like my lady, we got a raven. King's Landing has fallen, you know, and that's it.
That's what they did in season 1.
Yeah,
I was so fucking disappointed.
That's
I was
what
like,
they did too. but if it had done that way, then people would have received it differently. Or if it was like, if they showed the battle, like if they focused more on like the Winterfell people fighting Lannisters in the streets, and they focus more on that, and then like they cut to the battle being over, whatever. The problem that people have, the way that it was shot, the way that it was narratively exposed, is it framed Danny as the villain. Yeah. Because people wanted her to fuck King's Landing up with dragons, but they didn't want to see it, right? It's kind of like the people that want, it's a lot like those people that are like, yeah, we fucking Muslims, we just need to turn the Middle East into a damn glass crater. But they don't know what that means.
It's
like
Vietnam.
It's Vietnam. They don't understand like the horror that comes with inflicting warfare on innocent people.
Exactly.
Like, it was purposely framed to be a nightmare scenario.
Yeah.
It looked a lot like the pictures that you see from Hiroshima.
Yeah.
With like bodies that are frozen
Yeah.
and ash, you know, and black blood, people bleeding black blood and shit from the nuclear radiation, all that, from the heat. And it was purposely made to look like that so that you could see like what people were pining for.
Yeah.
Like ever since the first season, when people are like, go to King's Landing with those dragons and fuck them up.
Well, that's the thing. It's easy to order a war, to be for war that you don't have to see it.
Right.
It goes to what people say, like, oh, the all civilian army or army in the war in the modern era. We've been fighting these wars for how long? We've fighting these perpetual wars, and they happen over there, and we don't. It's not like Vietnam where we see footage every night of the shit going down.
And not just seeing the footage, but also like the idea that, you could be fighting in the army tomorrow now. Or now it's your turn to fight the army.
Yeah.
Like having that connection to the horror and evisceration that's happening paints those moments in a much different light than that. So like the way that I described it first, like if they had just cut to Sansa and they got a raven, like that's the kind of disconnected warfare that I guess we kind of have now.
You
with
see it on Fox
war.
News.
Yeah,
we won.
Exactly. Well, but the
enemy has been defeated.
And what you saw watching Danny from the civilian point of view, that's like the cameraman in the villages watching people with the flamethrowers and shit. It's exactly like that, and it brings to light like this. The whole point of And the show, and I don't want to sound like the books now, but the show did kind of like touch on it here and there, but then also kind of leave it on the wayside. And one of the great scenes, I believe it was season 7, was when the Hound shows back up and he's working with that dude from Deadwood, like building the stuff. Like they're talking about how these wars impact normal people, right? And that was the whole point with the High Sparrow too. Like, it was all about how, kick the mic. It was all about how the elites, the elite in the political class make decisions that trample on normal people, and they don't have any power or say. So like the High Sparrow was and his sect, his religious cult or whatever, they were gaining popularity and momentum against Cersei and the ruling elites in King's Landing because of the powerlessness that people felt and the hope and power that movement was inspiring on people.
Yeah.
So a lot of the show was built, and you had the Brotherhood Without Banners. Like their whole thing was initially they were sent out by Ned Stark.
Yeah.
When Ned was serving as the Hand of the King.
Dondarrion. He sent Dondarrion out.
Yeah, he sent him to find Mountain, and their mission eventually evolved into being a protector of the small folk. Like they were the Brotherhood Without Banners. They didn't serve any sort of lord. They served the ends of peace among the small folks to whatever means. And there was some religious connotations with that too. But ultimately that was what their goal was. So the whole show was predicated on, the political struggle, the Game of Thrones, who's going to sit on the Iron Throne, which king is, or which lord of what realm is going to, make alliances with this lord, and how is their armies going to attack this and that. But underneath all of that, like, there were two things. Like there was the existential threat of the White Walkers, and then there was, can the realm sustain this level of warfare for so long? And the realm sustaining that level of warfare is all dependent upon how, the citizenry, ultimately, are they going to go along with it? Like, is there going to be a revolt? Like, how could you keep all of this shit together? Like, you can't keep trampling them. And that's what Sansa's message to Daenerys was. Like, we just fought a war against the whites. You can't march these people down there to fight another one against King's Landing. Like, you have to give them some rest. Like, there's a lot of messages about how these wars for the throne affect common people. And you never get a sense of what that looks like in this show until that episode, until what Daenerys did to those people. Like, that was the first time you saw firsthand, innocent people that had nothing to do with anything get completely obliterated by someone that everyone thought was their Captain America, right?
Yeah.
So, but they got what they wanted. They got exactly what they've been asking for. They got Gontario dimmed, right? they got Gontario dimmed. Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah,
they got exactly what they wanted. They got Daenerys and Westeros with the dragons.
Third Witcher 3 reference.
We got a lot of Witcher. I got like 7 more that I'm ready to whip out.
This is a quick aside from the Game of Thrones podcast. If you liked Game of Thrones, you'll love The Witcher 3. The Witcher 3 is set in a medieval environment, almost exactly like one. Anyway, Witcher 3 is a great game. If you're jonesing after next week,
when you're lacking in your fantasy, dark fantasy horror, Witcher 3 is a good one to pick up.
Yeah, it's good, and you got it's a little slow in the very beginning, but once it picks up, it delivers. But
yeah, they got Gontario dimmed. Is my point.
Yeah,
like
they monkey's paw.
Yeah, they had a wish. They wanted to see it. They saw it, but they didn't see it the way they wanted to see it.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, it's weird. And I've had this conversation a bunch of times. I just felt like Daenerys. I mean, up until she completely lost her shit last night, I guess. I felt like that was a little bit of a surprise. I was like, because I could go either way, I was like, oh, cool, we're doing this. I mean, it was thrilling and a major bummer at the same time, but it was different. I didn't know for a fact it was going to happen, and I want to go.
And to me, like, that is kind of like, for all the people that have like this idolization of the first 3 or 4 seasons, like, this was their red wedding moment.
Yeah.
Like, this is what made Game of Thrones Game of Thrones.
Totally. I mean, it goes like this. When Ned Stark dies in season 1, I was fucking flabbergasted.
Yeah, as was everybody.
I was expecting the classic catastrophe. You know what I mean? The Tolkien. Someone comes in at the last second. You know what I mean? And I just couldn't believe it. And I talk to people that I'm never watching that show again. They fucking killed the best character. Fuck that show. You know what I mean? But at the time, it wasn't like there wasn't all this investment. They just seen a few episodes. It wasn't anywhere near the amount of butthurt we see out there now. But I was like, I fucking thought it was great. I didn't see that coming, man. Who fucking knows? I don't know where it's going to go now. Have no fucking clue. And it's a little similar, to The Last Jedi in the sense that, like, I didn't see that shit happen. I didn't, when I was watching that shit, it's like, they just killed Snoke.
Yeah, you got
He's
Snoke.
fucking dead. I didn't see that shit coming. Holy fuck, what are they going to do now? I have no idea. You know what I mean? And, that's an interesting, that's nice because it's so fucking rare. You know what I mean? And in genre fiction and action shit, to not know what's going to happen. I mean, everyone's going to go see John Wick. You know what I mean?
Right.
Everyone knows that John Wick is going to make it through that movie. You know what I mean?
I'm suspecting he's not, but I don't think it's going to be too surprising if he's not.
Oh, really? Well, I haven't watched. I watched the first one. It was cool. But my point is like, if he doesn't make it through the movie, the only reason why is because it's the third one.
Yeah, because it's the third one.
If it was the second one, he was definitely making it through the movie. You know what I mean? And when you go see The Matrix, you know what I mean? It's like Neo's making it through that second movie. You know what I mean?
Right, and even like for something like the Avengers, like the end of Infinity War, spoilers for you people that have whatever, but at the end of Infinity War, like, half the Avengers, die. Yeah. They all die. But
I haven't seen the end of Infinity War, which is it's a podcast into itself, but I do know that. I know the snap.
Yeah, they all die. But even then, everybody knows they're going to come back in the next movie.
Totally.
Yeah, so like that was, it was.
And you just think like, how are they going to figure it? How are they going to do it? Let me guess, it's going to be a parallel reality or time travel or one of the things they can do. And I haven't seen Endgame yet.
Yeah.
But I hear it was one of those things.
Well, it's one of those things.
Yeah. So my point is that like, it's very rare to not, and the people just take it for granted. Everyone takes for granted generally that they know how a movie's going to work out to some degree.
Right.
Like, I go see The Kid That Would Be King. Great movie. Juniper loved it.
I want to see
kids
that.
Movie. It was really cool. It was really fun little movie. Kids would love it. If I'd seen it when I was fucking 8, my head would have exploded. I would have loved it. But I mean, I know when that movie ends, all the main characters are going to be alive, and it's going to work out great. And most movies that you go see, almost all of them, except for a movie like indie, like real, auteur films, art house and stuff like that. You don't know how that's going to, which is one of the reasons that makes a lot of those movies so interesting. You know what I mean? Beyond just the sheer quality that but. It's very rare in genre action movies to not know how it's going to fucking end. To have something happen when you're like, holy shit, I didn't see that coming. Or I thought that could happen, but I didn't think it happened like this, And man, I'll give it that. When she fucking lit up that city, I was like, oh shit, she is wrecking this entire city. Like, I thought maybe she was just going to fly to the Red Keep and
burn the Red Keep.
Burn.
No, she went full bore.
Oh, yeah. And she dot Matrix that bitch. And I was just like, okay, this is happening.
At a certain point, we were like, how much fire does this thing have in it?
Yeah, well, here's a side note. In Dungeons & Dragons, a fucking dragon can only use 3 breath weapons in an encounter, right? You know what I mean? And that basically levels the playing field a little bit, because the breath weapon, in D&D,
as you can see in this episode,
just devastating.
It is devastating.
Yeah, and so you got
my character was killed by a breath weapon.
Yeah, so it's like you're watching that dragon. It's like, dude, this thing has a never-ending reserve of dragon fire. It's just like, I mean, shit, a B-17 had to go back and get more bombs. You know what I mean? This thing was just like, I'm good. I've eaten lots of goats. Whatever magic chemical reaction is happening, I got tons of it. But and that was cool. I was like, but to me, it wasn't like, it was a pea in my Cheerios. Like, Dani was the savior. She was the best character.
Yeah.
I had projected all my, all this stuff on that character. I was like, yeah, kind of makes sense. I can kind of see it.
Yeah.
I mean, she's hard. She's fucking hardcore the entire series.
Yeah, she has been. She has brutally murdered a lot of people and has stood by stone-faced watching it.
Yeah, she ate that fucking horse heart. She burned that witch, and the witch was like, she's like, I won't scream. She's like, yeah, you will. And she fucking burned her up, and the girl did scream.
Yeah, and she burned all the cows.
She burned all the cows. She watched
burned
her brother
the house dying.
Fucking, and her brother sucked. I will agree, but still, dude. I mean, she watched her brother get his gold on his head and was just like, he was no dragon.
Right.
She was fucking hardcore.
She's been pretty
she burned
legit.
those cows. She fucking crucified all those
the maesters, the masters.
The masters, and those guys were assholes too. But if you go back to Marine, I remember at the time, there was just a lot of like, she's too intense to rule. She doesn't know how to rule. She's, it's a theme that's been running the entire show.
Right, and it's only been like her guides, her handlers that have reeled her in, but they're all dead now. Miss Andy's dead, Jorah's dead. Like the people that actually had influence to keep, and she did, like they have long been building the fact that her trusted Tyrion has waned.
Yeah.
So like,
well, when she got to King's Landing the first time, that's what she wanted to do. She was like, let's go fucking burn it down.
She's been wanting to burn King's Landing for a while.
They were like, tell you what, how about we, it's funny too, because it kind of parallels what the criticisms about the atomic bomb in Japan. They're like, why didn't they just like blow up like an island? Why didn't they just say, hey, check this out, and take them and show them that we had the bomb, and they would have, and they were like, well, we only had 2 of them, and we weren't totally sure they were going to work, and you know what I mean,
right?
And there's a lot of reasons, but it's funny because they did a similar thing. It's like, let's use the dragons. Let's just show the power of the dragons, and they did the loot crate thing where they blew up the Lannisters' army in Highgarden instead of just that was their compromise. But it's something it's already come up once, and then she goes and she faces all that adversity. She's so close, but then she's seeing
like right on the path. She loses 2 dragons. She loses with Sandy. Like John has betrayed her, quote air quotes betrayed her by telling people. She loses Varys betrays her.
She loses Tyrion, and then she also knows that she is not the best claim to the throne.
Right, and on top of that, she's not the best claim to the throne.
Exactly, which has got to be like,
and
it was my destiny to rule. How could destiny abandon me?
The person who is the best claim to the throne was the person that she had affection for, whose affections she lost.
And ironically, doesn't want the throne.
It doesn't want the throne.
It's the classic, like, you're pushing me, baby. Like when Homer like is taking the trash out and he goes up to God and he's like, you're pushing me. It's just like, dude, she finally fucking did it. She was up there. She fucking won.
And that's what that was like when she's sitting there on Drogon and the bells are ringing and she's looking at the Red Keep. Like, that's what that is. That is like the culmination of all of that, of being sold by her brother and being, handed off to be banged by Khal Drogo, who she eventually gets affection for, but then he fucking dies. And then all of that shit in the desert, wandering the desert.
Karth.
All the shit with Karth.
Oh, yeah.
The House of the Dying and seeing the vision and all of that, and having her dragon stolen by the first person that betrayed her, which was that girl that sold her out to the black dude.
Yeah.
And then, like, everything from there, like finding out that Jorah has been communicating with King's Landing and everything, all of the culmination of all of her betrayals and hardships and losing dragons and the losing people that trusted her after she freed them and whatnot, and having to turn her back on Marine and all of that. Like, all of that culminated in that moment where she had no idea. If she had pulled off her attack, she had no idea what was going to happen. She was like, what was she going to do with Cersei? She knows that the people don't like her or don't trust her as much, or at least don't like her as much as
she knows that they stabbed her dad in the back.
Right.
Everyone in that city just went on like it was okay. I mean, there's this inherent kind of like,
and there was no uprising.
Exactly. We were your rightful lord. You turned your back on us. You fucking sold us up the river.
Right.
I was sold. She's just like, fuck you people. Fuck this place.
And that was what really drove her to fucking do what she did. Like, and in her mind, it makes perfect sense. And a lot of people are saying, well, this is like the Targaryen. I say it too. Like, Targaryens are just known psychopaths. There are only really a few ones that, and Rhaegar, ironically, was one that was a steady Targaryen.
Yeah. Well, the weird about Aerys is when Aerys was young, supposedly, he was fine.
His madness came later. But the thing is, I'm not even sure if this is madness on Daenerys' part.
I don't see it as like the Mad Queen. I see it as, this is Daenerys just being pushed to the point where she's like, fuck this.
Like, I'm going to put it into all of this immediately.
Yeah.
Like, I'm dropping the hammer.
She's like, I'm tired. I've got the upper hand. I've got this dragon, and I'm going to make such a fucking dent in this reality that I don't come back from this. That there's no, people will fear me. She says it, she's like, fear. This is going to be it. There's not going to be any challenge to my rule after this. I'm laying waste to this shit. You know what I mean? I'm starting over.
Right.
And it was an emotional reaction, but it's one that I felt was fairly earned personally.
And she knew that making that decision, she was going to have everyone that she gained an alliance with from the north was going to turn on her. But she she didn't care. She has her army still. She still has the Unsullied and the Dothraki. She still has her dragon.
She was feeling particularly. It was definitely major hubris in that moment.
Well, and she, but I mean, how can you not when you're sitting on a giant dragon
totally.
surrounded by a massive city of fire?
She was a moment where she felt, I've been underestimated this entire time. And fuck these people.
I'm going to show them what Mother of Dragons fucking means.
Yeah, you wanted, in the words of Kiss, you wanted the best, you got the best. You know what I mean? One night only. Fucking, it was, and the thing is it was wrong,
for certain.
But it made sense. I get it.
Yeah.
I wasn't like, how could Danny do this? And I think that, there's been articles too. It's like, Willa Paskin in Slate, who I generally don't agree with a lot, but she actually came and she was like, it's okay that Daenerys is not a feminist savior, you know what I mean? She's like, there are other women on the show, you know what I mean? She still took some jabs at the at the writing and all the stuff as she normally would. She's
And I actually saw a really funny tweet about Brienne, like like somebody tweeted like, I hate Dick. This is what Dick makes you do. Dick makes you stand outside in a winter coat crying over a dude who left you for his sister. Like, it was just like a funny thing. It's like, okay, so yeah, you have Brienne, who's this great feminist icon too, but if we don't see her in this last episode, then the way they left that character off.
I will see her.
Are you sure?
Oh, yeah.
I hope so.
Well, because we're going to see Sansa again. We'll see her. I mean, there's
guess.
A lot to be resolved. But, I mean, it's going to go quick. But, I mean, and
how
that's
long
the thing.
is this next episode?
It's only like an hour and 20 minutes.
Oh, okay.
And I'm gonna say this. Spoiler alert. You will be disappointed.
Oh, yeah. You're just...
Everyone listening to this, whoever you are, you're going to be disappointed. It's not going to live up to your expectations. Because there's very little that actually would at this point.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
And the showrunners and the writers have left very little room for maneuvering in any way that's going to give you anything close to what you wanted before this turn happened.
It's just like, it's going to be kind of like Lost. Maybe it'll be better than that. You're just going to have to decide whether the price of admission for the roller coaster ride was worth it or not. In my opinion, it was.
Yeah.
But, your mileage may vary. You know what I mean? I mean, I think that when I said earlier about the, villains, the ending of villains in Game of Thrones being always unsatisfying, it's always unsatisfying. The ending is never ever lives up to the.
It's always the journey, right?
Yeah,
it's always the journey.
There's just no way they can do it. You know what I mean? There's just no way it can be everything you want it to be. I joked last night and said the only way it would work is if a portal opened up in everyone's living room and Jon Snow stepped out and said, "It's all real.
It's all real.
Come. You can play in the land with me. Ride a dragon. You know what I mean?
Funny
You'll be invincible, and here's a magical sword." People were like, "Yes, this was the best finale ever."
Well, it's funny that like earlier you mentioned David Lynch, and I don't think you watched the third season of Twin Peaks that was on Showtime.
I haven't watched Twin Peaks.
Yeah, David Lynch, weird shit. But like the whole the last episode, spoiler alerts, but the last episode was all about like so the main character was kind of trapped in some in between state in the dimensions and whatnot. So like his character in our world was kind of like a vegetable that didn't really know how to act. So like for the most of the season, people are like, "Come on, Dale, come back to us, give us our Dale," blah 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 blah. But like at the last episode, like the character like sticks a fork in an electrical outlet, electrocutes himself, and it brings him back around. So he wakes up in a hospital, and he's back to the way he was like in the 90s.
Yeah,
like the way his character was in the 90s.
Is this Kyle MacLachlan's character?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is like it's like a 17 episode season. This happened in episode 16, I believe. So for 16 episodes, you just saw Kyle MacLachlan act like a mentally disabled person. And then in the final episode, or the next to final episode, you get back to that character that he played 16 or however many years ago. So people were like, "Yeah, Dale's back, all right," and then people were stoked about it. It was a happy moment. But like the way that the show ended, the series ended, was like it was definitely David Lynch being like, "Fuck you to all you television watchers," because it was like. all right, I'm back. I'm awake from my coma. I know exactly what's happening. I'm going to fight the whatever. Dale walks into like the police station from back in the 90s, and like there's a demon there. Like he fights the demon and kills it, and then like all the characters just kind of randomly walk in from out of nowhere. Like the blocking is such where they're all just kind of standing side by side, like, all right, everything wrapped up nicely, and they're like shaking hands. They're like, all right, I love this comic. It ends like and like it plays out in this way where it's very obviously a critique on delivering fan service, I guess. Delivering what people want rather than telling the story you want to tell.
Exactly.
So
is this what you guys all want?
Yeah, exactly.
This is it, right?
Right. And
everyone just hanging out, right? Like it all worked out great.
It all worked out. I'm back. It's like I never skipped a beat, you know. But the thing is, like,
what time does the Big Bang Theory come on?
It goes from that to like some other super dark thing, and it ends in a really disturbing way. So like the whole point was like, oh, you thought this was the ending? Fuck you. This was just a fuck you to everything you wasted 16 episodes watching. It turns out all that stuff was inconsequential because the real message of this thing is that be okay with having your expectations subverted. And just enjoy whatever ride you're on.
Exactly. I'm the author. I'll tell you the story. You can decide if you like it or not, but I'm the one telling the story. If you want, you can go write your own story. You know what I mean? Maybe people will be into it or not. But yeah, I'll definitely be watching. I haven't rage quit the series yet.
So I think we've analyzed the living shit out of this thing at this point.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately what it comes down to is, people are super, super invested in this show and these characters in a way that they probably haven't been in a show or characters since maybe Lost.
Yeah.
And this isn't the kind of show where you should get comfortable with anyone.
Yeah.
Like, you could be invested in the characters fine, but like recognize that shit's got to happen. And it's not really about whether or not it's bad writing, whether something's earned or whatever. It's about what is it you're trying to get out of it yourself from watching this.
Yeah, totally.
And for me personally, I love the character drama, and I think there's still a lot of that's good that's in it. But I'm also just a big fan of fantasy epic shit. And it gives me that like nothing has ever done before. So I can excuse a lot for really awesome shit like that.
Well, that's the thing. And I think that my brother and I were talking about this today. I think that goes to a lot of the heart of the show. A lot of this thing. Game of Thrones, when it was originally incepted, when it came on TV, it wasn't. I mean, I'm sure they thought in their wildest dreams maybe it would be popular, maybe we get a few, but it was a genre show. I mean, and that I think they were hoping for maybe like a True Blood style level of success.
Right.
And people that like vampires would watch it. But it was for fantasy audiences. And the thing is Game of Thrones has changed the culture so much.
Right.
You know what I mean? Fantasy at the time, before Game of Thrones, I mean, it was there was nerdcore. That was a thing that was kind of happening, but it wasn't anything like it is now.
Right.
I mean, most people, when Game of Thrones came on the air.
Well, that's because Game of Thrones is really good at getting people that were not necessarily susceptible to fantasy shit into it, because the fantasy elements in those first few seasons was pretty far removed.
Yeah.
Like, you got the stuff with the White Walkers, and to a certain sense, like, that was a good entry point because, like, when that show came out, the zombie craze was already out of control. And that's basically just zombies. People saw those whites as zombies.
Sure.
So that was enough to get, people that maybe weren't ready for dragons or elves or anything to watch, right? But then what happened was, in addition to all, the crazy sex, you had a really good political drama with really good characters, really good acting, and really good writing between, characters with the dialogues and scenes and stuff. And that was enough to blow people away, blow people's expectations just completely out of the water.
Yeah.
And from there, and it snowballed from there. And the great thing about that is the source material that it was built off of was already really, really good. So you start to see adaptations of things from the book, like when Ned died, like, oh my God, people lost their shit when Ned Stark died.
Yeah.
They had no idea what the hell was going to happen. It was kind of like No Country for Old Men,
Yeah.
When who was it? Well, who was in that? Was that Brolin?
I actually haven't seen it. So
well,
maybe
I'm sorry.
Don't
Spoiler alert. But yeah, like, So when you had scenes from those books, like the epic moments that all the book readers knew what was coming, like, and we were waiting for the red wedding, like, oh man, people are gonna lose their shit when the red wedding happens.
Yeah.
And then it happens, and like all the stuff that built up to that moment happening, it was like, holy shit, this is unbelievable television I'm watching. There's great drama, great characters.
And it looks so good.
Great twists. And it looks amazing. At no point does it look like I'm watching dudes LARPing in the woods.
Yeah.
Like,
and the thing is like there's no show that even comes close to the way this show looks. You know what I mean?
And the funny thing is, I don't watch Walking Dead, but sometimes, like, just to like amuse myself, I'll watch like a video recap, or I'll watch like Mr. Sunday Movies or whatever that talks about it.
Yeah.
And I'm watching the footage of it. I'm like, man, this looks terrible.
Yeah. Like the thing about the episode Hard Home, you know what I mean? How fucking awesome that shit was. How it looked, how it felt.
Hard Home had so actually Hard Home to me like stands out for its sound design. Like there was some incredible shit going on.
Yeah, that was just a great fucking episode.
Great epic episode. But like the Battle of Castle Black was, to me, visually, it might still be the high point. Like even with what we've seen in this last season, like Hard Home, Castle Black, those two to me are my high water marks.
My two favorites are Hard Home, with the second just underneath it, but really close, is the loot train fight. That shit was breathtaking. When it was the dragon, he hits the forces,
right.
And it comes in from the top, and it's like the waves come, and those guys are just ash.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're standing there, but they've been like essentially just rendered to ash, and they all just blow away. It was so fucking awesome. Dude.
So and the Winterfell episode, had a lot of, like, I still don't think that it was as good. Like, it doesn't stand out in my mind quite as much as some of the other stuff, but it has one of my favorite visually awesome moments in the entire series. That was when the dragons were fighting in the clouds.
Yes.
That, to me, that is what Game of Thrones was built for.
Yeah,
like,
well, that's
there's
the thing.
nothing else. And I remember I watched when I watched Pacific Rim, and like there was that scene where the dude where the Jaeger was fighting the kaiju in the sky, and he pulls out the sword. It's like slow motion. He cuts the sword in half, or he cuts the guy in half with a sword, and it looked like a fucking Gundam poster.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
That was the only reason why I wanted to see that movie. It was like, this is like everything that I ever dreamt of as a child, wanting to be a mech pilot or something. Like, this puts it on the screen in such a beautiful way, and it looks exactly like how I think it should look in real life. And like that, the two dragons fighting in the sky above the clouds was exactly what I wanted to see.
Yeah, that shot was unreal. And then the shot where the dragon or Drogon is coming up above the lines, and the storm is happening, but the fire's burning, and those huge pillars of smoke, and it's just kind of twisting. I was like, this is so fucking epic that Ronnie James Dio might rise from the grave. You know what I mean? This might reanimate his corpse, and he's just like, It
was really nothing the show could do at that point that would have made me turn on that episode.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like this season is giving us that. It's given us that really great second episode, which I love. That scene between Brienne
and that's the character moments.
Yeah,
like the great.
So I mean, there's it's like they're trying to get out in under 6 episodes, and I'm sure that they had a lot of stuff they had to do, and they had a certain amount of money they had to spend, and they could only do 6 episodes. And it's like, hey man, it's like we can only spend so much fucking money on the show. They spend a lot of money on these episodes. But man, there's been really, 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 really awesome shit. I mean, honestly, I would take some of the fucking clunkier bullshit in this season over a lot of the great shit from a lot of lesser shows.
The best other shows out there, their best episodes, I have a hard time imagining that they compare to even the worst ones in this season.
I mean, a show that it's like a show like Bloodline, which I watched a few episodes of, and I'm sure it was great. It had some great acting, but I mean, it's like, it's kind of a Breaking Bad-esque kind of thing where some guys do some bad shit and they're trying to fucking hide it, murder and the families.
That's another thing about this show. Is like how much more of those kind of shows do I have to fucking sit
Exactly.
through?
That's the thing. Like, it's such a Me Too kind of show. Well, not a Me Too show. But, sorry. That's not what I meant. But my point is like, I'm sure it's a great show. Don't get me wrong. I'm not bagging on that show, but I would take a lot of the worst Game of Thrones over the best that.
Right.
Because again, I know what a displacer beast is. And if you know what a displacer beast is, Game of Thrones is probably for you.
But even if you don't know what a displaced beast is, like if you're somebody that's willing to watch something different, like there's nothing else that's touching the fantasy realm, period, let alone to that extent. Like you'd have to go back to watch those Lord of the Rings movies to get anything close.
I agree, and that's my point though. As anyone that spent time in the 90s, in the fantasy section of a B. Dalton on his knees going through all the Forgotten Realms covers and looking at all the game, looking at the,
yeah, if you know how to pronounce Drizzt.
Yeah. then, this show, it's more than just, the characters have really developed and blah, blah, blah. That's all great. It does a lot of that. But it's like when it fails in that regard, there's other stuff that,
that could pick up the slack.
Yeah, that maybe
yeah, for every where's my wife, there's a dragon that's fighting another dragon.
Exactly. It's kind of like for the Muggles might not be so into. I can understand that maybe that the base part of and they're just not down with they think it's cool, but not the way I think it's cool.
Right.
And so certain aspects of the show, that bum them out way more than they bum me out. Because it's like, honestly, that was kind of weak. But, this dragon fucking shit up is pretty cool. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
It's like, what else am I going to do? You know what I mean? Really, it's literally asking nothing from me, and it's giving me all of this.
Except for an hour and a half of your time.
Yeah.
Which you're more than willing to do on a Sunday night, because what else are you going to do?
Yeah. And it's provided, the fact that it's become such a cultural touchstone, the fact that it's, you know what I mean, in crazy ways in our culture. It's like, I watched an episode on Vice, about how African Americans have embraced Game of Thrones, and Black Twitter's embraced Game of Thrones, and like they have these watching parties and stuff, and it was the whole point of the show is like, this was very unexpected from this subject matter, when it would come out, that it would be this just wildly popular with all these different, you know what I mean? Like Brazil, the show is fucking like a lot of those, like, Arya stabbing the Night King. That was videos were from Brazil, just bars in Brazil who were just glued to the fucking TV.
It's definitely crossed. It's crossed over into something that's definitely a worldwide phenomenon.
Yeah.
And that speaks to a lot about and I guess in a certain sense it's kind of like I don't know the quote, but the quote in summation is basically, you could track your success by the number of people that are coming after you, right?
Yeah, sure.
And you get that. I get a lot of that with this, where people are like every time a female character says something, it's like a grounds for a charge of misogyny and all of this sort of thing, and like sometimes you can psychoanalyze it to where you could fit that claim if you want to do that.
Yeah.
But you could just as easily psychoanalyze
Anyone
it to
who's
not
been to
fit that
college
claim.
knows that.
Yeah.
You can pretty much make anything be anything.
You can make anything be anything if you try hard enough.
Yeah. And I will say this: there are going to be a lot of writers at IO9 and Slate and fucking The Verge and all these other that they're gonna have to find someone to write about. They've gotten a lot of clicks. Yeah. They've gotten a lot of clicks on the back of Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Some people have made some careers off of that.
Oh, dude, they think about the advertising dollars that have been made from and the monetized YouTube videos. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
From people commenting on on Game of Thrones, writing about Game of Thrones. And
we're talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a good possibility no one's going to ever hear this.
No one's ever going to hear this. That's okay. This is just me venting into a mic, and you're here to take it in.
So, we at least have that. But I mean, anytime I read an article where the people are just so, they're bagging on it. Like, I was reading the USA Today article today that was posted with the Facebook rant, and it was like the title was like Game of Thrones burns itself down. It's like, hey, it's saying the last episode, dude. If any time is the right time to burn themselves down,
you're gonna burn yourself down. Do it now.
It's like, see you next week, dude. You know what I mean? Because I guarantee you will be writing about whatever happens next week. You know what I mean? And your salary is it's kind of weird because it's this weird symbiosis where George R.R. Martin and these showrunners and these production designers and these directors and these writers all worked their fucking asses off and made this thing.
Right.
And they make money from HBO. You know what I mean?
They make money from a lot of different places.
Yeah. I mean, but then there's this whole ecosystem. You know what I mean? Of blogs and like online publications that write these articles, where they talk about fridging, and you know what I mean, and fridging is when
okay.
You looked at me like, and I just learned about it a little while ago. I was like, oh, that's a thing.
Fridging is like the female being cut up and put into a fridge and whatever, right?
No,
that's what I thought it was.
No,
what am I talking about?
Fridging is when a character is killed off to make another character like motivated.
No,
to do
but
something.
it's usually in reference to a female character.
Yeah, I guess probably.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know why it's called fridging. Is it called fridging because
it was in reference? It was in reference to like a
comic
movie,
book or
movie of
something
some sort where they
that.
did that. Yeah. Whereas I personally like there was a great quote or something where I forget what it was, a review of a movie. It was like your typical male revenge movie where the wife was killed or whatnot, and the dude gets revenge. But like the quote was like the gears of the story are lubed by the blood of the woman. And I was like, oh, that's rich.
Yeah,
I like that. That's a good one. It was grease. It was grease. The gears of the story are greased by the blood of the slain woman. I was like, oh boy, that's accurate.
Yeah.
And grisly.
That is pretty grisly.
But yeah. That's anyways.
Yeah, you know what I mean. It's just
I know what you mean.
Lots of lots of lots of hot takes. You know what I mean? And the funny thing is that for every hot take, especially in Slate or whatever, those are for clicks. They're actively making money on trying to.
And again, it speaks to the zeitgeist of the moment, because the reason why they get clicks is because so many people are watching and so many people have a reaction to it.
Yeah.
Like if there wasn't a whole lot of people whose world wasn't completely ruined by Dani making her decision, then the clicks wouldn't be there. Those articles wouldn't be posted.
Well, that's my point. These guys, the crazy thing is these guys have done a great job. Because for whatever you want to say about them as writers or whatever, no one can. It's inarguable that they have created a show that is extremely successful. Whatever they're doing, you know what I mean. Up until the very last episode, I doubt the entire world's going to rage quit after. I imagine the ratings for this last episode will be quite good. You know what I mean? They have, and the show has gotten better, bigger every single year. They have taken the show and they've made it an audience the world over, literally flipped out to watch whatever happens, in this fantasy show with dragons and guys with swords. You know what I mean? And so it's like, whatever you feel about what's happened in the plot or, what you think, you cannot deny the show is rapidly successful in a way that a genre show like this, you know what I mean, has maybe never been, And so it's like these guys have done their job so well that a whole ecosystem of people who, maybe on their best day, you know what I mean, they might make something that, it's like they'll never ever make anything as wildly successful as this.
Right.
But they'll make some money writing an article about how, certain character felt phoned in, and
which is fine so long as people keep things in the proper perspective.
I agree, but I think the perspective sometimes is lacking.
And I think that there's nothing that is more appropriate or more telling in where perspective go or where perspective is gone than this headline here. Game of Thrones showrunners are hiding from angry fans until finale is over. So they've got one more show left. That's going to be next Sunday. And this is a quote from DB Wise about ask how they'll be viewing the final episode. We'll be in an undisclosed location, turning off our phones and opening various bottles. Unquote. EW wondered if they wouldn't be a little tempted to take a look at Twitter to see how fans react. Quote DB Weiss again. At some point, if and when it's safe to come out again, somebody like HBO's GOT publicist Mara Michelinian, I butchered that name, will give us a breakdown of what was out there without us actually having to experience it. And David Benoff says, I plan to be very drunk and very far from the internet. So get ready for next week.
Yeah, no shit.
If you were disappointed by this episode, get ready, because Sunday is going to probably be a really rough ride for you.
Yeah, I know. I think that disappointment and butthurt are going to be flowing freely the world over to some degree. But Not for me. You know
Not
what
for
I mean?
me either.
I just don't care that much, like how it winds up. I mean, I'm just like, yeah, man, whatever. You know.
Hey, they gave us 8
Yeah.
seasons of a fantastic
Yeah.
ride, and however they want to end it, I'm gonna be there for it.
Like
so.
there were multiple times during this course of this show where I cheered out loud. You know what I
Right,
mean?
yeah.
You know, whether it was Arya stabbing the Night King or when Jon Snow finds out that
Oh,
Valyrian
when-
steel
that was
kills
the moment
a
for
fucking
me.
White Walker.
When John hit that White Walker with the Valyrian
Oh,
steel,
yeah.
like that was my, like, all of a sudden all the metal shredding just
Yeah,
like
that's-
played in my head, like, yeah,
No, it
the
was-
fucking
it was-
Iron Maiden galloping
it was a
bass line.
great moment, dude.
Yeah, that's like probably that's my single favorite moment of the entire show, and it's given me so many great moments.
Yeah.
So there's nothing I can really say other than I'll be there
Yeah.
next week, and I'll be happy with whatever they
Exactly. You know what I mean? Whether it's got shit that's clunky or shit that I think is dumb or shit that I think is awesome or shit that I think doesn't make sense, at the end I'll be like, that was pretty great. I enjoyed
Right.
that immensely. And I would just like to openly thank everyone who worked on that show.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
the shit I've seen from behind the scenes, it's obvious that
And I
you
don't
guys
give a
work
fuck
your-
about your coffee cup, all right? So go fuck yourself.
But the funny thing is, anyone
They
that's
left the
ever
cup there,
edited
yeah.
anything, you know what I
They're
mean?
always editing all sorts of weird shit out.
Yeah, it's like, dude, give me a break. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like, but I don't. To me, that's not even worth talking about.
No, it's
Something
not, which
like,
is why we have it.
It's obvious they're phoning it in. It's like, oh
Boy.
Jesus, King.
Anyway, so next week, Game of Thrones will be back for its final episode. Maybe we'll be back to talk about the
Maybe I think
fallout.
we probably
will. Yeah.
It's been a great ride. I gotta say, I've
Yeah.
enjoyed. I remember when we watched the first. And during the first season, we were about 6 or 7 episodes in, and we went to the bakery, and you were like, I think this show is going to be pretty awesome. And I think I'm going to check it out. I'm going to have to read these books. And I was like, yeah. And then you had me, I Googled the books.
Yeah.
And I read you the titles. And I was like, well, the first one's called A Game of Thrones. Isn't the first one called Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
And I was like, the third one sounds cool.
Yeah, the Storm of Swords. So I was like, oh.
maybe just skip the Storm of Swords, you know? And I remember having that conversation. And here we are all these years later. And then, he, of course, he's read all the books. I haven't. But, the show is wrapping up. And it's been a great ride, man.
It's been a great ride.
It's been a cool show. And I'm anxious to see what these guys do when they go into the Star Wars world. But, Jesus, you think the fandom is nuts here.
Oh, boy.
Woo!
They better get ready.
That's a whole podcast in into itself.
Yeah. And with that, I bid you adieu, Nerdcast.
Yeah.
Join us next time. We'll try to break down whatever the hell happens in the next one.
If the world isn't
If
burning.
the world isn't
If
fucking
the
set
fans
aflame.
haven't just turned shit.
They might draw and quarter those
Yeah.
poor dudes. Later.
Later.